Welcome to Gate City Insider. I'm Rosemary Plyben. The National Association for the Education of the Young Child sets aside the first week of April every year as the Week of the Young Child, a time to celebrate early learning, young children, their teachers, their families, and of course the community that supports all of them. Well, after 2 years dealing with COVID and the fallout of sickness, missed time from school and work, and isolation, the focus on young children has really never been more important. LaMisha Staton does community outreach with the Guilford County Partnership for Children. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. Paint a picture, if you would, of what the past 2 years have really been like for families with young children and the community that supports them.
So for families of the young children, it has just been very hard. This has been a trying time, although we know that several measures had to be put in place to protect our children, protect our families, dealing with isolation, separation from their friends and their teachers and the community. It just really presented a time of which we're seeing now the impacts of that, the outcomes of the isolation. And so although we were putting measures and measures had to be put in place to keep them safe, we see, some challenging behaviors. We might see other concerns. And it's placed a greater emphasis for us to know we've got to make sure our families are employed, make sure that they have what they need so far as housing resources. So the community has been very resourceful and such a great support, but we know that more work needs to be done.
And of course, all those things you were talking about that were affecting the families were also affecting those who were working with young children, educators, caregivers.
Yes.
I mean, they were facing those same things, having children at home. And
Absolutely.
so we know at the beginning, March 2020, so 2 years ago, schools and daycares and preschools, they all had to close. I mean, they were ordered to close. And so people were home with their kids, and sometimes they didn't have an opportunity to work from home for many of them. It set a lot of challenges. So when people started to go back, what things had to change about caring for young children and teaching young children?
Well, I will say that a number of our child care programs did stay open and they continued to serve. And one of the things that I'll say about our early childhood providers, we are so proud of them. The pandemic faced a greater emphasis on the importance of early childhood, that birth to 8, birth to 5, those are the critical years before we get ready to send them off to kindergarten, send them off further into life. And so, although we were presented with those challenges, our early childhood providers, families, the community stood together. We continue to stay together, and we're just moving forward the best way that we can.
Yeah, this is so much that. What changes do you think or what things did the pandemic bring to light that maybe were already there and that maybe people weren't seeing? What are those things?
Well, one thing I think about is how hard our early childhood providers work. Those early childhood educators that, us in the field of early childhood that we know. And one of the messages that we try to put out at the Guilford County Partnership for Children is for our early childhood providers, we know that you were always essential. Yeah. But it took, we're sad that it took the pandemic to bring this about, to show the importance of those providers. And we know our parents know, families and other folks in our community, but a lot of people, I think, didn't realize how critical providing support to the early childhood community is. If we don't surround children with the supports that they need and also their family at the same time, then, it's going to present a set of challenges for us in the future. And so I think that with the pandemic, folks needed childcare to go to work. Yeah. We needed our teachers. We needed the education system. We needed our early childhood providers, and so this definitely brought that to light. And I think it's going to stay this way for a while, but we do want our providers to know, early childhood field, to know that we know you're essential. And we appreciate this platform today to share that. Yeah, and not only just for the caring for children, but the teaching. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, but I think it's important to kind of go back to it a little bit. The brain development that is happening in a child before age 2. That's right. I mean, 80% of the brain development is happening in those early years, and the learning that needs to happen before they ever even think about pre-K or kindergarten. Yes. And we're seeing the effects of missing some of that learning right now as kids are trying to get back
back into some kind of normal.
Absolutely. So we want people to remember how critical that is, that brain development that's taking place right now in those early years. You know, we stress literacy and reading to young children and babies. You know, all of those things are so critically important. And so we hope that our community knows and will support our families that have young children. You know, one of our programs, Dolly Parton Imagination Library.
Oh, yeah, we love that one.
We're always trying to recruit for young children, but for our community to just rally around us in programs that are supporting families, supporting teachers, you know, to know that, you know, this is needed, and greater wages are needed for our teachers, you know, that have just, especially our early childhood community as well. So this has just helped us to just put a spotlight on these needs, and so I think we'll be doing this for quite some time.
You know, we're starting to get back more normal things, right? We're sitting here in the same room together, which is wonderful. Are you seeing that families with these young children are ready to get back to normal? I mean, I feel like sometimes we don't ask that question directly to them, and that's the group that can't be vaccinated yet, and there may still be some concerns around that.
Yes, and I'm great we have a parent that's here today to talk about that also from the family perspective, but I think that some families, you know, just some may be ready and some are just not, and I think, you know, it just puts the greater emphasis and importance on us to be understanding to that if they're not ready, that's okay, but to talk about, you know, we're putting as many safety procedures in place to keep them safe. Our centers are doing that. They are committed to keeping our children safe because, once again, not only are we preparing for their education, we want to keep them safe physically. Right. You know, we want to make sure they have a bright future, and so all of that is very important.
So what kind of supports are available for families in our community right now?
There are tons. Guilford County is so rich in resources, and I would be remiss if I wouldn't put a spotlight on just some of the programs funded through Smart Start, which is a program that surrounds North Carolina, 75 local partnerships in the state of North Carolina. The Guilford County Partnership for Children is just one of them. So we fund a number of family support programs supporting child care centers, and also health programs. So we have programs like Healthy Start, which is through Family Service of the Piedmont, that has case managers working directly with families, parents as teachers, that also has parent educators working in the home with families and showing them how to play and how to, you know, create and have fun with their children. And also family literacy programs through Reading Connections and Learning Together at Guilford Child Development that will teach the child how to read and the importance of literacy and their parent at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah.
All right, so we mentioned Week of the Young Child. I can't let you go without telling us just a little bit about what's coming up, because I know you've been working really hard on that.
Yeah. We're very excited. We have some amazing partners that have worked with us. Week of the Young Child will kick off on April the 2nd. We have programming that will kick off on April 4th through April the 8th, virtually and in person. So if folks want to learn more about what we're doing, just visit our website at guilfordchildren.org. We are having a music concert that Monday on April 4th with our local artist, Finn Phoenix. Tuesday, we have a mental health session that will run on Facebook Live with the Kellen Foundation. We have a virtual resource fair. We have a nature walk that's going to be in person at Barber Park here in Greensboro. And then we'll also have a drive-through event for families in High Point at the Fairview Family Resource Center.
Lots going on.
Lots going on.
Yes.
So we're excited.
There is support for you. For families with young children, there is support. Thank you, LaMisha. We appreciate you spending some time with us. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the pandemic's effect on young children and the community surrounding them. And so that's coming up. But also, like she said, if you want to find out more about resources available for families with young children, and of course the Week of the Young Child, that website, guilfordchildren.org. Stay with us. We will be back with more right after this quick break. Welcome back to Gate City Insider. Today we are focusing on young children and the effect the pandemic had on them, their families, and their education. Ashley Allen is the Work Environment and Compensation Coordinator with EQUIPT at UNCG. It stands for Education, Quality Improvement, and Professional Development. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. Okay, so I want to know, what are some of the challenges that early childhood educators faced even before the pandemic?
Well, you know, I think a lot of the challenges have remained throughout the pandemic, but focusing on beforehand, the context of the work is really misunderstood by a lot of people. It's a job that comes with such high expectations, not always having the resources you need to meet those expectations. And then at the end of the day, folks don't always understand what exactly happens in these settings. And it just doesn't create that sense of value in a community that really should be there and show up in our actions. So that's kind of where we were before the pandemic started. And when COVID hit and many programs closed, you know, we had to assess and figure out what is the best way to do this and meet the needs of families and children safely.
And their caretakers and educators.
Right.
I mean, all those people.
Right. So putting themselves at risk and their own families too, many did come back, and they came back to meet the needs of families that had to go to work. And interestingly enough, many of the K-12 settings continued to go remote for quite a while. And these programs were so responsive in opening school-age classrooms to have school-age children come in and do their remote work on site in early childhood programs. So in that moment, the programs and folks just responded to what was needed, but sometimes I think being that responsive can also stretch you to your limits.
Yeah. So what is it? I mean, you said people don't really understand what happens in those settings. What is it that you wish people understood?
You know, I think we say early care and education. And from working in this field and talking to families and even folks on the street and senators, legislators, you get this idea in your head of, oh, this is childcare, or oh, when I hear that, they mean NC pre-K.
Right.
But when we talk about it, really, we mean any person working in licensed settings that's serving children 0 to 5. So that could be your private programs, your faith-based nonprofits, your NC pre-Ks and Head Starts. But it's all of those collectively that meet that need in our community. And when we talk about it collectively, we're able to do more things collectively that affect the folks in all those settings across the board. So not only that, realizing kind of what happens there and who they are, education's required.
Right.
And you've got to have knowledge of brain development and observing a child to see where they are with milestones and lesson planning and being able to be responsive to individual children in the class and what they need. And it's high expectations and professional development after hours. And now with COVID, talking about kind of pre and post-COVID world, not that we're post, but with the current context, many are working overtime just to keep classrooms open for families because there's a side effect of a staffing shortage.
So there's a lot, and these are highly skilled people. A lot is expected. They have a lot of responsibility. So how do we make it better for them? I mean, how do we improve? What is needed to attract the right people who can do those things so well, and to keep them? I think maybe even more importantly.
It's a really important question that we should all be asking and focusing on right now. You know, I think the pandemic caused some folks to leave, which is natural. We had, you know, some family child care homeowners who were at the age of retirement and have decided, you know, if any time is a good time, it will be now to phase out. But we really haven't come back with staffing to the level in Guilford County or any state that I know of as to what we were pre-pandemic. Now, we did get CARES Act funding, just like many other states, to give stabilization grants to programs, which has really made a difference. Lots of folks have seen bonuses for sticking with it. Compensation has increased, but it's to stabilize. And we have to remember that stabilizing means getting us back into a place where we're staying open.
and to where we were, which wasn't great to start with for a lot of people
Right.
working in there.
Right. So it's really important that we keep advocating locally, statewide, and federally for more funding so that we can think about growth in future. But I'm a firm believer that community level change is really where you can see the biggest impact. And any little small thing that folks could offer. A lot of times you'll see K-12 educators get a discount on a certain day.
Okay.
These programs are all over the place. So we don't have a little card that says we're part of, whatever school system. Take a letter. Let us turn in letters that are on letterhead from our program and give those same discounts to early educators. Things of that nature, where the community showing that they're valued is going to help build up that resilience that, to me, would be the one word to describe them throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, community collaboration. I mean, we know this, that, connection, collaboration, all these, important C words that we missed during the pandemic. And now is the time to right that ship, even if it wasn't right beforehand.
Yeah.
I mean, is that kind of what you're saying?
Very much so.
Yeah. So what do you see happening? We're kind of at a point, maybe we're pivoting, out of this pandemic and we have an opportunity to make changes. So what do you see happening and how?
Well, I think it's really interesting to see that larger organizations are really starting to have deep conversations around what are we measuring, what are we supporting, where does funding go? Are we serving people and actually making an impact? So I think it's given folks a moment to step back and see what the real needs are in the community, and not just Guilford, but across the board with early childhood settings. But I think we're also at a pivotal moment where it's once stabilization grants have come out to support people, it's not something that just ends. So we know that we are in a space where something can be done, and that is going to give hope as long as we all continue talking about it and working towards it. It's been a long fight. There's been a lot of advocates working for compensation in early childhood for decades. And I think we're at a space right now where we can see some changes. We still have a long way to go, but I think it's really hopeful too, as long as we see that, and even at a community level and a county level can rally around that and do things here locally that make an impact.
Right, and I think that now we can't look away. We just can't. I mean, this has really shown a light on it like never before. So from an educator's point of view, you talked about recognition, you talked about community level, recognition and getting involved. So the Week of the Young Child, why are things like this so important?
Well, it's funny because you think about celebrating things in school and holidays, and we'll have a day of something. It really gives us an opportunity for you to have folks like all of us to spread the message in the community more and raise awareness, but it allows early childhood educators, family child care home providers to see themselves mentioned in the media in a positive light, where our words aren't going to be cut and spliced, and they hear us saying how important they are, but they also hear us asking for folks to take action to show how important they are. When folks feel valued in a community because actions show that they're valued, that resilience is going to go further. And it's just incredible to me to think that this is a workforce that is responsible for what children look like when they go in kindergarten.
And ultimately, when they
And
go out
who
into
will
the
be
real
taking
world.
care of us
Exactly.
in the future. They're Guilford County citizens, and the impact that they have is incredible. So it's important for our community to hear that and act on it.
And I love that. You gave us some really actionable items too about things that, local businesses, you can make those discounts available, have a early childhood educator appreciation week, child care provider appreciation week, offer those same things that you would to healthcare workers and, service agencies. So thank you. We really appreciate you spending some time with us. And then once again, wanting to know more about Week of the Young Child, guilfordchildren.org. We are not done, because when we come back, we are actually going to talk with a pre-K parent, really get a personal view of the landscape around families with young children right now. So stay with us. Welcome back to Gate City Insider. The pandemic presented challenges to every single individual, family, business, and community, each unique. Parents of young children face the closing of schools, child care centers, struggles to work with little ones at home, on top of worries about their health and their family's health. Connie Colter is Vice Chair of Head Start Policy Council at Guilford Child Development, also the parent of 2 very young children and 3 others. Hello and welcome. How did you get away?
Let me just tell you.
We're not quite sure, but you're here and we're glad. Tell me about your family.
Okay, so I am a single mother of 5 wonderful children. Their ages range from 12, 11, 7, 4, and 2. And they're all great children. I have 3 girls and 2 boys.
And so when the pandemic started, so March 2020, what was that like at your house?
It was a living nightmare. It was chaotic. It was trying to figure out a new schedule, a new structure time for my children. It was, okay, now that everybody is home, what time is this person having Zoom? Okay, well, if this person having Zoom and I only have 1 computer, how do I get more resources to support my kids? And then that's when the school started saying, hey, we got laptops for your kids. And so that was very beneficial for getting my older 3 kids with the TV, with the laptops and everything. So that was very beneficial.
And what about the younger ones? Were they able to still go to have childcare?
No, the younger ones were at home. I was basically their primary teacher. So I had to create little learning boards for them. Like the teachers would drop off little packets for them to do. But essentially, I was the one that was teaching my children, which I already do because I'm that type of parent.
Right.
But it was more hands-on. It was making sure that with my 4-year-old, Gianna, she has a speech impediment. And so trying to get services with her, it was, okay, now we have to do services on Zoom with her speech pathologist, which has been hard.
That was hard. Yeah, that's not how anyone's used to doing things, right? Wow. So what do you think people don't really understand about what it was like and what it is like for parents with young children right now? Because we're not done with this and everything isn't back to normal for everybody.
So I think what a lot of people don't understand is how much being at home with your children on a 24 basis, not being able to have that moment where, okay, your body is resetting because your kids are out of the house, you know, especially for me, I'm a single mother. And so not having that time to, okay, depress and gather my thoughts was hard. There was times where I would just have a mental breakdown, but here I am, if I'm not taking care of myself, how am I able to take care of my children? So I started going to therapy and seeking help where I would then be able to walk outside for about 10 minutes, gather my thoughts, take a breather, come back inside and help my children with their education stuff. My son, he was struggling with math, and that's one of my strong points. And so trying to find a way to help him understand the math concepts that he was doing was a really hard challenge because I had to relearn that all of my kids, they learn totally different. My oldest son, he's more of a hands-on, show me how to do it. My daughter, if you just tell her, she'll do it. But it was very hard to do.
And I love how you say that, you know, that people were thinking about the children and the not being able to work, but they didn't think about a lot of us, the time that you need for yourself to take care, you know, the moms, the dads, the grandparents, the primary caretaker needs that time to rejuvenate. And you can, at the beginning, especially the pandemic, children can even go and visit a friend. Did you have community support? Did you have any family or friends who could help you, at least at the beginning?
So in the beginning, I was home all the time with my children.
All by yourself?
It was, no, you're not going out. If I needed to go to the grocery store, it was mostly, okay, well, we're going to the grocery store, make sure everybody's suited up. Don't touch nothing when you're inside the grocery store, stuff like that.
That's easier said than done.
Right, especially with the 2-year-old, because, you know, everybody wants to touch things and then put stuff in their mouth. And trying to have your children wear a mask while the pandemic was at the highest point was really hard, especially with the younger children.
Right. Okay, so where are things now? Where do they stand now for you? And how are you feeling about kind of where we are in the world? And I assume some of them are back in school?
Yes, thank God. Some of them are, so my oldest 3 are back in school. My 4-year-old, she is in the early Head Start program
Great.
at Ray Warren Head Start. And then my 2-year-old, she's also there, she's enrolled there, but because they don't have enough teachers, she's home with me all the time. And so it then becomes an issue because it's like, now I have to find somebody, because I am a full-time student at GTCC, now I have to find somebody that can watch her versus, dropping her off at her school.
Right.
And so that's been very complicated.
So it is not back to normal.
No, not for me at all.
No, not at all. So what supports do you think families need to know about that are out there right now?
Right now, there is a program through social services where they are providing children with child care vouchers to get, but the criteria for that is you have to be working or in school. The only thing that I say has the issue with is there's a waiting list. So you get this job, and then it's like, okay, you're expecting to get the voucher as soon as you get the job, but then you're on the waiting list for, right now it's a 1.5-year wait list.
And then if there are not enough providers,
And then then you're back at home with the same condition
and you can't go to your job. So what do we need to do for families? How can we better support them? What can our community do, people who are watching?
I feel that if we can start having pop-up daycares, that would help the families. It's kind of like a barter system. So the families that would need the help, whatever specialty they had, whether it was cooking, if they were an artist, if they were somebody that could make something, if somebody else could watch their child for them for a couple of hours while they needed to go to school, needed to go to work, I think the family really needs to go back to where we're actually being neighbors and helping each other. A lot of people miss that concept, and it's always, they don't want to give the help. There's a lot of people out here that aren't working, and it's not that they don't want to work, it's just that there's no child care.
They can't. Yeah, they can't leave their kids.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. What have you learned about yourself, your family, over the past few years?
I have learned that I am an amazing mother.
I can
have
tell.
learned that at times you do need to take care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, then there's no way that you can take care of your children. I've learned that even through this whole process that I am an overcomer. I've been able to go to school and still have a 3.5 GPA grade point average. A lot of people think that I'm crazy because I have 5 kids, I'm in 5 classes, I'm taking up 2 majors, and they're just like, how do you do it? But with the proper balance and structure and time management, that really helps people. So my advice to anybody that's out there would be, just keep waiting. Keep going. Don't get stuck in, seeing the negatives. But if you want the help for your child, it's out there. You just have to be that parent and step up and say, hey, I see that my child is dealing with this. I need the help.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask
advocate,
for help.
Advocate for yourself. All right, so last question. I know we're out of time, but where are you 5 years from now? What are you doing? Tell us where will we see you?
5 years from now, I'm currently working with Ready for School, Ready for Life as their new parent liaison. That is a new position that they just created.
Great.
So I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping to become a better advocate for other parents that are out there that are struggling to speak up for their children and their education. Maybe one day I might go into running for the mayor or something like that, but I'll be done with school, hopefully within the next 5 years, and I'll continue to being the voice that parents need when they need it in the community.
I know you will, and we will be watching you.
Yes,
so, Connie, you stay in touch. Thank you so much. It was really nice to spend some time with you. Once again, we want to remind you about the Week of the Young Child. This is a great time for recognition. You can learn about some of the services that are available if you are a business and you want to get involved with supporting the families with young children and the community that supports them. That's all a great time to do it. It is coming up the first week in April, the 2nd through the 8th. You can 8th. I'm sorry. You can find out more about the events happening by going to guilfordchildren.org. Thank you for spending a little of your time with us today. For all of us here at Greensboro Television Network, we hope you have a wonderful day.